Good morning, guys. It is Saturday and I feel like baking a couple things. One of them is going to be chocolate chip cookies with oatmeal and chocolate chips and walnuts and all kinds of spices and seasonings. The other thing is from my recipe book. This is my recipe folder. It's a little bit beat up, but it has all the recipes that I have saved through the years that I have either made or still would like to make. And two of the ones that I have made are these oatmeal cookies. They're from a box of Giant Eagle old-fashioned oats, and the proportions are really good. They come up pretty well every single time. So I've got the dry ingredients and the sugars set out and sifted already for that. I did that last night. Pulled out a few walnuts from the freezer, and I've got this 1 measure cup loaded with semi-sweet white chocolate, butterscotch chips. Here's some vanilla, and already put a little bit of five spice seasoning into the dry mix, but I might taste the batter, and who knows, I might even add a little bit more. This recipe will take 1.5 eggs, and the other recipes will go for this dish. It's called a Swedish onion tart. I'm not really sure what's Swedish about it, but you make a tart shell and press it into a pan first, and then you bake that off. Then you make your filling, and the filling is primarily sauteed onions. So I still have them in the refrigerator, but I will bring them out a little bit later, and they take quite a long time to cook. So out of all of this stuff that I'm doing, I'll probably put the onions on to saute first. So I will bring you back as I go along, okay? Okay, we're going to start with the onion tart, and the first thing to do is to cook the onions. I have some oil and butter here. And I'm just going to saute them, stirring now and then until they get translucent and a nice light golden brown. Okay, now it's time to add a little bit of cold water to the pastry. I'm going to start with about 3 tablespoons. Maybe 4. And then just take my fork and toss and stir it. What I want is for the dough to hold together. And you can tell that there's quite a bit of dry crumbs around the edges here, so I'll be adding more water. The pastry has started holding together, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to form it and roll it out on this floured surface and transfer it to this foil lined pan. Okay, the onions are coming along nicely. I have the pastry in the baking sheet, and I'm going to cover it with a cotton towel and put it in the refrigerator for 30 minutes. Okay, it's time to get started on the oatmeal cookies. I have in the bowl here butter, some lard, brown sugar, white sugar, and I'm going to be adding a couple of splashes of vanilla. Maybe about 1.5 teaspoons. And 2 eggs. And then just mix it together until it's nice and creamy. Next, I'm adding in the dry ingredients, the flour and the baking powder and soda and salt and a little bit of cinnamon, Chinese 5-spice mixture, and let's get them combined. I had about 1 cup of oats. Now the recipe calls for 1.5 cups, but this will do. To compensate for the lack of oats, I'm going to add about 2 more tablespoons of flour. I don't want them too hard and doughy, but I don't want them too soft either, and I think that should do it. So now I have added various types of baking chips, including white, butterscotch, peanut butter, and semi-sweet. Here are a few walnuts right here. And the last thing I'm going to do is zest a little bit of orange zest over top of it. It just makes such a wonderful aroma and flavor. And you don't need a lot. This is one of those mini oranges, and there's not a whole lot of rind on here. Okay, that's good. Okay, and now it's time just to stir it all together. My favorite cookie scoop is the one that you can also use for meatballs. It just makes a really nice sized cookie. So I'm just going to go ahead and scoop them onto this prepared pan. These cookies are ready to go into a preheated 365-degree oven, and while they are baking, I'm going to go ahead and assemble the ingredients for the onion tart. And now for the filling for the onion tart. In the bowl here I have 4 eggs, and I'm going to beat them up. And I'm going to add a sprinkle of thyme. You could use fresh, and I wish I had fresh, but dried thyme works just as well. And then a little sprinkle of parsley. And then I have about 3 tablespoons of half and half. Now I will write the recipe out for you as I found it, but the first time I made it, I found that there was too much milk, so I have cut way back on the amount of milk that they call for. Okay, beat these real good. I'm going to add some of the cheese that I grated, maybe a handful and a half, and just combine that with the egg mixture. Okay, and then the next step is to spread the cooked onions on top of the tart, and I'll show you that. Then over top of the sauteed onions goes the egg and cheese mixture. I'm just going to carefully pour it so it's fairly well distributed over the whole tart. You can see the herbs from the thyme and the parsley. Okay, very good. Okay, and now a little bit more of the cheese that I reserved, just to sprinkle over the top. How's that? I think that looks pretty good. And then a final touch is some cooked bacon. And again, this is not in the recipe, but I thought it would make perfect sense to put some bacon on top of here. Okay, there we go. I think that looks pretty good. Huh, maybe 1 or 2 little pieces, so that everyone gets a bite, right? There you go. Okay, and then you put this in a preheated oven and bake it for about 20 minutes. I would start with 20 minutes. Mostly you want the egg to set, and you don't want it to get too brown. And of course you want to let your cheese melt too. So it's ready to go into the oven. And here's what the tart looks like just out of the oven. The eggs are nice and firm. It's hot. If you can see that golden color right there on the edge, that's the pastry. So I'm going to let it cool for a little while before I cut a piece. Okay friends, here's what's for dinner on Saturday. I have this Swedish onion tart with bacon and cheese. I've got a small salad here with cucumbers and tomatoes. And then on the side for dessert, I'm having a chocolate chip oatmeal cookie ice cream sandwich. And I think that looks pretty delicious. So that's what's for dinner here on Saturday night. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by and watching, and I will see you soon.